sure everything's good. Alright. Welcome back to It's Not a Sport, Season 2, Episode 20. Another short episode this week. Not a whole lot of news, really at all. There are a lot of releases that are coming in on like July 2nd, moving into July, at least things that I'm interested in, but not a whole lot of news. So like usual, let's get into esports, starting with the LCS. So we have Team Liquid in first place. They are being 6-2. Second place is tied with TSM, Cloud9, CLG, and Optic, them all being 5-3. Then 6 is tied with Golden Guardians, Clutch Gaming, and they're 4-4. 8th is 100 Trash, which is they're 3-5. Echo Fox is 9th, being 2-6, and FlyQuest is at the bottom of the barrel, being 1-7. In Europe, Fnatic is first and being 6-0, followed by G2, which are 5-1, then Splice, which are 4-2, and then SK Gaming, Origins, and Skalak 04, still can't pronounce them, are tied for 4th, being 3-3. Rogue, Misfits, Team Vitality are tied for 7th, being 2-4, and then XL Esports is in last place, being 0-6. In the LCK, Sandbox Gaming is in first place, being 7-1, followed by Griffin, 6-1. Then Damwon and Kingzone are tied for 3rd, being 5-2. Then Genji and Afrika are tied for 5th, being 4-4. SKT is 7th, being 3 wins, 5 losses. Hingwan Life Esports and KT are tied for 8th, being 2 wins, 5/6 losses. And Jin Air Green Wings are in last place, being 0-8. In the LPL, Fun Plus Phoenix are 7-0. LNG Esports are in second place, being 5-2. Rose Never Give Up, Invictus, Sunning, Billing Gaming, and Top Esports are all tied for 3rd. Victory 5 and Edward are in 8th. Oh My God, LGD, JD Gaming, and Rogue Warriors are all tied for 10th. Dominus Esports, Team WE are in 14th, and Vice City Gaming is 16th, being 0-6. Now, they're also having Rift Trials currently, so a lot of these top teams are, attending Rift Rivals, so that's going on. So we're gonna go over those. For NA versus EU, Origins, Fnatic, G2, and Team Liquid are all tied for first place. Origins being 2 wins, 1 losses. Fnatic being 2 wins. They're all 2 wins, 1 losses. TSM is 5th, and Cloud9 is 0-3. And that was groups and knockouts. The first knockouts will be Fnatic versus Cloud9. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. In Korea, China, I believe, China, LMS, and Vietnam, I think, are the leagues. Basically all the Eastern leagues. They haven't played yet, so they're all tied for the same spot. In the Overwatch League, at the time I'm recording this the Saturday after Friday because I wanted to play Final Fantasy and some other games and talk about that on this episode. So Overwatch League will be live soon in about an hour, which the first game being Dallas Fusion versus New York Excelsior. But in terms of placements, New York is in first, then Vancouver, then Hangzhou, then Shanghai, then Los Angeles Valiants, then San Francisco, then Los Angeles Gladiators, then Seoul Dynasty, then that's the playoff cutoff point. And then Houston, Guangzhou, Chengdu, London, Philadelphia, Paris, Florida, Dallas, Boston, Toronto, Atlanta, and Washington is in last. In terms of game releases, Super Mario Maker released June 28th, which was yesterday. That was the big one. Then there was Judgment, which was like a earlier in the week, which was a Yakuza type game. It's in the same world, I believe. Samurai Shodown, The Sinking City, which is some sort of horror game. I forgot to mention that because it's not on this list, but all the Heavy Rain, Detroit Becoming Human, Beyond Two Souls are all in the Epic Games Store too, so if you want to go play those games. In July 2nd, we have Final Fantasy 15 Shadowbringers, which we're about to talk about in a second because I got early access because I pre-ordered. That official release for that is July 2nd. And then we have the Stranger Things 3 Fit game on July 4th, and then that also the show, I believe, starts July 4th as well. I know July 2nd, I'm a huge fan of Young Justice, and Young Justice Season 3 Part 2 resumes July 2nd, I believe. So that's something also to look forward to. And then in other news, just from the top of my head, I know the Steam Summer Sale is going on right now, and there's some sort of event where, of course, you pay money and then you can get a free game from your Steam library, supposedly, and that's causing a lot of backlash for Steam. A lot of players screwing over a lot of indie developers, and people are getting angry and really confused because, you know, their points in the point system or whatever is not working. So there's, you know, that news. More news is that there was a poll in Europe about Google Stadia, and a lot of people said that they didn't really want it, which is generally how it goes with new technology. Everyone's really skeptical, especially because this can really change the industry. And I think latency is still kind of a huge issue, and we're not ready for it, but that's what everyone's saying. So I'm kind of being open to it and seeing, you know, what we get is what we get. And that's really it. There's some Pokemon stuff today. Them apologizing that you won't be able to transfer all your Pokemon to the new game when it comes out. And then them also showing off Pokemon Masters, which is some sort of mobile game, I think. And yeah, that concludes this week's news. So we can just hop right into what I want to talk about. The first one being Shadowbringers. So Shadowbringers, right? The early access was yesterday, and I've been playing Final Fantasy really since the beginning of the year to get prepped for it. And I only have a couple of hours in it. I've only done the first sequence of quests to go meet your friend. I'm not going to say which one because it's kind of spoilerish, but to meet your friend or one of your allies. And I enjoyed it a lot. The zones are beautiful, just like with the light just pouring into it, and the artwork, and like, you know, the detail of the light and what they've done to it. The story's interesting. It's really slow right now, as most stories are, but it's definitely has potential, I think, to be one of the best in the Final Fantasy XIV storylines. The reworks to Summoner, which I played, which is the class that I play, are very interesting. Relearning this rotation, and just they really streamlined it so it's more interactive. It used to be where you use an off global cooldown and an ether ability, off global cooldown and an ether ability, and if your ether abilities weren't up, you would just spam that, and then you would eventually get your Bahamut, and then you would go spam that, and it was like a 2-minute really long rotation. Now it's a combination between ether abilities and your pet abilities, and you spam between that, and that's kind of your bread and butter right now, at least because people haven't really figured out the rotation. And then once you get to your Bahamut, it's less technical. It's just really kind of like one button sort of spam, and then you go into your Phoenix, which I haven't unlocked yet. I know a lot of people are like already grinding some of their classes to like 80. I'm sure there's already 80s. I'm really taking my time. I find that if you're going to play Final Fantasy, there's a shit ton of story, and it's best to just take your time with it because there's so much story. It's ridiculous. And really learning the classes and the raids too. But even leveling just feels good again through like the story and kind of going back and doing old content. and like a level 71 character just feels good. In terms of race wise, because the whole big controversy a while back was like that you couldn't be they had it. I don't know the actual terms. It's like Viera and Hofgar, I think. Hofgars are like the lion people and Viera are the bunny people. For now on, we'll just refer to them as lion people and bunny people. And you can only be female bunnies and male lion people, and a lot of people are mad about that. But then I see the expansion, and I think I see one lion dude, and all the other people have just like re-rolled their character races to female bunnies. I'm pretty sure some people in my guild also have done that, and I've seen like 0 lion people, so I thought that was kind of worth mentioning. It's kind of funny. I'm tempted to re-roll, but I don't really exactly want to yet. Maybe it depends on how things go, because again, this is early access. They had troubles when I was logging on with like DDoS issues, and I'm sure when the thing officially releases and all the Steam people come and etc., it's may or may not be a mess. But right now, I think it's running pretty smooth. I love the story. I love the soundtrack. Right, the soundtrack has been fantastic, as Square Enix usually is. They just keep getting better and better with these soundtracks, and it's really fucking good. Of course, that's only in the first zone, and like the themes usually, and I haven't even gotten to the first dungeon. But as it progressed, and I've listened to some of the tracks in advance at the boss theme, and they are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So again, like I really highly recommend that if you're a WoW refugee, or you're looking for a new MMO. I've played really shitty MMOs. I played Guild Wars 2, which is regarded as one of the best, but it has no progression, so you get really bored of it. I played Blade and Soul back from like launch all the way to maybe like 2017ish. It was good, but then it's terrible, and I tried it again earlier this year, and it's still fucking terrible. So, and then I've tried Black Desert, not as much as the other ones, so I don't really have an opinion on Black Desert, only that it was really confusing for a new player, because there's so much to that game, it feels like, and it's hard to get into. I know it's a microtransaction mess, but yeah. So I opt for Final Fantasy, and other than like the mountains of story, that's really it. I highly recommend you play it. I've been preaching this for a couple of weeks now. The game's really fucking good, and this expansion's pretty good as well. They've streamlined a lot of systems, made it a lot easier, and fixed a lot of things, like, and a lot of quality of life changes with like the retainer menu, the crafting menu, because up to this point I've been kind of leveling up all my crafters to 30. I leveled up all my gatherers. The market right now, if you want to make some money, I won't tell you which items, because that will fuck up the entire economy, of course. But on my server, Frankfurt, there's some things that are selling for like 700 gil, 600 gil, because the people are fresh out. People are now going to be trying to level up crafters and make money, and then the new crafting recipes. So if you gotta farm what you need and sell that shit, which I'm going to be doing as soon as I'm done with like story shit and leveling up my main class, you can make some real bank right now. And the same goes for crafters. If you're crafting stuff, especially because in 2-3 weeks technically, or like 2.5 weeks, the first raid will be coming out, and a lot of people will be preparing for that. Generally these are open, like they're meant to be story modes, and they're meant to be really easy, but they'll be preparing for that, and then they're preparing for the Savage version of it, which will release like 2 weeks later. So that's a lot of people grinding for like min-maxing gear, so you can make some money off of them. Just saying. So with that out of the way, again, just go play it. It's fucking fantastic. July 2nd is the official release, and I think Square did a great job. And it's underappreciated. So with that out of the way, I wanted to talk about Capcom and their big 2 games for this year. that being the Resident Evil 2 remake and the Devil May Cry 5, both of which I played and beaten. I finally 100% Resident Evil, or at least, both part A and part B for Leon and Claire. I did Leon A and then Claire B. And then I played Devil May Cry. I did it on the easiest game mode, or easiest mode, because it was kind of confusing. But I did all 20 levels and missions and finished that up in 2 days. It was relatively short. That being said, the reason why I'm bringing up these games, and of course maybe in later, when we go to Game of the Year episodes towards the end of the year, because I think Resident Evil is definitely a contender for Game of the Year, I will talk about why, or go in more depth into it. But for this episode, which will again be relatively short, the reason I'm bringing up why these two games have been such a big contender, and why I think Sekiro also have been such a big contender. Not only are they single player games, and a lot of EA did like, there's no single player games that no one wants to play. That's because they're not designing them right. I think they're really, it's all becomes, when you're designing a single player game, it becomes, why are you designing it, right? So bringing up Sekiro, right? Sekiro has a lot of replayability. Okay, I 100% Sekiro. I got all the achievements. I did fucking everything you could. I've replayed through a New Game Plus up to like 4 or 5 to get all the endings. And the reason I did all that is because there's different endings, and it has a lot of replayability. The bosses are really fun, and the encounters are different each time. You get new upgrades through each boss and encounter, and moving through, and it's designed essentially for you to play through it multiple times. The same goes for Devil May Cry. I think I'm only going to play through it once, because as well as I enjoyed it, it's not really, I just want to play a simple hack and slash. I didn't want to replay it over and over again. Maybe I'll go back to it later, but that game is designed to be replayed. That's why it's short. That's why it's 20 levels. That's why there's so many upgrades, because you're meant to play those levels over and over again. Try and get the highest rank, stylish SS, triple S that you can on those levels, and move on to the next. You're meant to max out Dante, and then Nero, and then V. You're meant to go play V's version of X scenario, and then Dante's version of X scenario, and then Nero's version of X scenario. And I think that's why that game has so much potential. You're meant to go do the tower, the bonus things. I know there's like a tower that you're supposed to climb, and they throw different waves of enemies at you, but you're meant to go replay that. But also those games have modding potential too, where you can mod them and add new things, right? So that's how that game's designed to be replayed. The second one, or last one, is Resident Evil, right? SG Awesome Games Done Quick is going on right now, and there's been a lot of cool speed runs, and Resident Evil was one of them, and it was super fun to watch. I was watching with TJ, and he said, wow, this is actually really fun to watch. And it is, because as Resident Evil is a great story game, at the end they give you a level based on at the end they give you a rank based on how fast were you, how many healing items did you pick up, how many zombies did you not kill, how many times did you couldn't die, how many times did you save, just stats like that that you take for granted. But then you can get a better rank and then unlock like the infinite minigun, or the infinite knife, or the infinite pistol, and just items like that. So that's how that game's designed to be replayed, and it's designed to be speedrun. Where Devil May Cry is designed to be to get the highest score, right? Sekiro is designed to be speedrunned and have different endings, and Resident Evil is designed to be speedrunned to get better items. That's this type of replayability when it comes to design that I think that most new single player games should have, because I don't want to play a single player game and be like, well, I have nothing else to do, I beat the story, That's it. Let me just, go play, Fortnite or, anything like that. I want the games to be designed where I want to challenge myself, or the player can challenge themselves to get new rewards, to be faster, to get the highest score. And I think that's why these games, on top of their great on top of their great stories, on top of the design, on top of their looks, on top of the voice acting, on top of, etc., why these games are so successful and why single player games need to be more successful. If you look at why people, so we're saying, single story games and single player games, we're going to cut stories, aren't so good, because we're looking at games like Call of Duty, where they're not meant to be replayed. You just play it once and then you go play the multiplayer. The main focus is like the multiplayer. There's no effort into that. But then these games were, and like God of War, I think really kicked this off a little bit. There's other games, but God of War, Dark Souls, that type of design is really good for single player games, because it makes me want to go back and replay them. Anyway, that's going to conclude this week's show. I know it's a super short show, but that's because it's really the end of the month. E3's over. We're not going to really get anything until holiday. Right now, it's just kind of some semi-game releases and just enjoying games that you play. If you want a list of games, I have an episode for that. I will probably update that list relatively soon. For people who want to know what's on my list, I'm going back to play The Witcher 3 over again to get kind of hyped for Cyberpunk later on next year. And then I will probably want to play Final Fantasy 12, the Zodiac era, and Final Fantasy 10, as well as just playing 14 and, preparing for raids and maybe getting more into hardcore raiding like that.